we are videotaping this today. So I did blow dry my hair a little bit today. Not super well. I forgot I was being videotaped because we do know there's a few people that can't join us. And we'll go around in a minute and do introductions. But we thank you tremendously for coming today. For those who have been a part of the race, when we go around, we do love to hear how many years. And I know from a lot of the faces, we range from folks who predate my involvement 12 or 13 years ago to some new faces, and that's always super exciting. This event has grown so large with 4,000 participants plus their family members that come, that taking an hour of your time 2 weeks in advance really makes for a smooth morning and avoids you having to be there at 5:45 a.m. So it's mutually beneficial, but we thank you tremendously for taking this time. We work on this event 9 months, but without almost 200 volunteers on the front lines, it doesn't matter. So all of you knowing what to do, being calm and confident and excited to be a part of it is tremendously helpful to all of us. So thank you.
Hi, I'm Liz Krantz. I know almost all of you, but for people watching the videotape, I might not know you. So I'm Liz Krantz. I'm the volunteer coordinator. This is my 12th race.
So a couple quick things. I'm going to just do a decent amount of talking, but please interrupt, wave down with questions. We can do questions at the end throughout. This is for 2 different groups of people, and there actually is a method to our madness. We do train everybody together for a few reasons. The more you know, the minute you put the yellow shirt on that we have modeled here, they think you know it all. So the more you know, the better. But by the way, it's okay if you don't know it all. You just have to know where to send people to find out what they need to know. So we used to do separate trainings, and we decided it's a lot better for everybody to hear everything. And also, we also are going to thank you for one other thing in advance, and that's your flexibility. You all are going to have roles that most likely you will fill race morning, but let's say we have a ton of registration folks get sick the night before or something else, and we need to move people around. It's really nice to know that this many people are trained in multiple areas and hopefully willing to be a little flexible if needed. It's not going to be a lot, but it's just nice to know we have that ability. The 2 groups of people here, as Debbie mentioned, Ask Me volunteers, which the more common term is greeter. We have actually created the term, I believe it might have even been Debbie, Ask Me volunteer, because we want them to ask you questions. You are their first line, starting as far wide as Richmond, Cedar, and the mall entrances, all the way up. We have positions that, those of you who are Ask Me volunteers, if you could see Debbie at the end, Debbie has a sign up. Are you doing the sign ups today? Okay. So you can pick your positions. But we changed it to be Ask Me because, again, we want them to ask me. We actually even have big buttons that you'll wear that say, Ask Me, so they really know. So you're in yellow shirts with an Ask Me button. Hopefully that's enough for them to know that you're the one to ask. You guys, as I said, are strategically positioned around, from the outside coming in. Some of you graciously are willing to even be standing on the corner of Richmond and George Zeiger holding a sign directing people to go park off of Cedar so they don't pull their car right in the middle of our event site. So you're a vital group to not only be informational, but I know it sounds cheesy, but when you're their first interaction with the gathering place on that morning. So a smile, a welcome, a thanking them for their support, that interaction is, I do a lot of events, and first and last impressions, I think we all know are the most important thing. So you are the first impression people are having of the gathering place, organization, and race for the place. So we thank you in advance for doing that with a smile and with excitement. So one of your handouts is called, this is where the glasses have to go on, Chris, sorry. One of the handouts is called Ask Me Volunteer Information and Cheat Sheet. I'm not going to go word for word, but I'm going to go through this. And also, registration volunteers, this is great information for you as well, because there will be people that will get to you without having interacted with an Ask Me volunteer. So the more you know, the better. What I love so much, there's a lot of things I love about the gathering place, but one of the things I love about the way we approach this race is customer service. We want everybody to walk away. I mean, we're so thankful for their fundraising, but we're also thankful for their being friend of the organization. So positive experience is the name of the game. So you'll see that when I start talking about registration. People sometimes get flustered and come up to you and they think they know where their shirt, they think they know this. Our job is always to smile them through it and help them figure it out. And when in doubt, you know, if somebody thinks they registered, we give up the $20 to make them be happy if they adamantly think they've registered. So I think in everything we're all doing, if we keep that mentality and tone, it will sort of set the tone of how we approach the day. And again, there's 200 volunteers. If you have 200 happy, smiling volunteers, it's clearly going to be a happy, smiley kind of day. So again, I'm going to go through the top line things from this. I do encourage you to read this closely. You will be given a laminated version of this on race morning when you check in, which I guess I should back up to a minute. Well, I guess at the end, maybe you can go through the logistics of check-in and stuff. Is that good? When you do check in with Liz, you'll get a laminated copy, because something, for instance, when I get to balloon colors, you don't have to memorize this, but you'll just have it with you and be able to reference. So just starting from the front, I already talked about the most, you know, that you're the front lines. You see in italics, dress for the weather. We are rain or shine. We are super lucky to have Beechwood Place as a partner, because for those who have not been there before, we try to do the majority of the event on the upper level parking deck. But we're super lucky that they have a lower level parking deck. So we've had to do this twice, Chris? Twice, I think? Where we've had to move the event downstairs. And a small crew of us arrives on site by 4:45, 5 a.m., and we make that call on what to do. So it is rain or shine. So check the forecast, and don't even check it just Saturday night. Do me a favor and check it when you wake up. This is Cleveland. I've gone to bed on Saturday night where it's 80% chance of rain and woken up at 4:30 to 0%. So sunscreen, hat, raincoat, whatever it requires. My theory, if anyone didn't hear me say it before, is, I mean, at some point this weather has to end, right? This cannot continue. So by June 2nd, hopefully that means we're in the clear, because there's only so many more really bad days of weather that we can all handle mentally. The biggest thing, you'll see this red paragraph, and this pertains to everybody in the room. Our biggest change this year, although it's funny, it's a change. We've done it this way based on the weather, but we're intentionally starting this way. Registration is going to be down below, rain or shine. In nice weather, everything else will be upstairs, and registration will be downstairs. Inclement weather, everything will be downstairs. Part of this is for all of your sake that are working these tables. We like music, it gets loud upstairs. We've had volunteer feedback that it's hard to hear your interaction with the guest. So we're gonna give this a whirl and see if this makes for a smoother operation for all of you. What it does mean is that some of the Ask Me Volunteer positions, a few of them moved a little bit. Debbie and I have remapped them out. But the most important thing is knowing the closest spot to you. When Debbie gives you your spot, she'll explain it to you one by one. But for instance, anybody who parks on the west side of the mall that needs to register, we'll send them down the ramp right there. Debbie will show this to you on a map, because there's only one staircase and one elevator within the event space. And that does get crowded. But if our amazing Ask Me volunteers catch people out here, there's other elevators and other ramps to send people down. The only people that need to go downstairs, and this is really important, are people who are walk-ups and have not registered, or individuals who have pre-registered and haven't picked up their stuff. So if somebody's walking up and they're already wearing, and I'll give you a quick little preview when I talk about a race number, they're already wearing this, they don't need to go to registration. They're already wearing the shirt, which, shoot, we're about 4 hours too early on our training, because our first actual shirts will be here later today. So you can't see them hot off the presses, but if you follow the Gathering Place in emails and social media, you've already seen our fantastic shirt for the year. If you see people that already have one of those two things, keep them away from downstairs. We don't need the traffic, and they don't need to go up and down. Registration is only for day of and people that haven't come here during the week to pick things up. Or I guess I would also say, we do get some, I want to switch out my size, I want to do this, send them to us at registration. We will make as many people happy as we possibly can. And as we said before, the goal is to answer any questions before they actually enter the event area. Talked about dressing accordingly, and that Debbie is your captain. Between Debbie and mall security in their vehicles, we'll get everybody out to their spots, or walking, whatever everybody prefers. Yellow staff shirts, if you have one already, you can wear it. If you need another one, we actually have some here, I'll have the other ones actually by Wednesday, but we do have some of almost every size. If you wanna grab a shirt today, actually, you know what, Fisher, you wanna grab the yellow and orange shirts, put them on the table, cause then at the end, if you wanna grab a shirt today, we can. Course people, actually only grab yellow,
Just yellow.
because there's
Just
nobody in
yellow.
course here, yeah, sorry about that. And then we also will have them race morning, but if you're here today and we have your size, you might as well grab it, and that's one less thing you have to do. Please be at volunteer check-in by 6:45 a.m. Volunteer check-in is located by the top of the stairs and elevator on the upper level parking deck between Nordstrom and Dillard's. So if you're coming, let's say you're on Richmond Road, you turn onto George Zeiger, it's the event happens at the first entrance there. But that entrance, so that's where the event happens, that entrance off George Zeiger will be shut down. So being volunteers and being the earliest ones to arrive, what I'd like to ask and recommend you all do is either enter off of Cedar or off of Laplace and park on the west side of the mall. And the west side of the mall is like between Nordstrom and Richmond Road. Everybody following me? And then you'll walk around to the event site. So try to avoid George Zeiger, it makes life a lot easier. So just account for enough time to park and walk, to be at Liz, to check in no later than 6:45.
Would you have signs for parking?
Well, no, but the entire lot, other than where our event is blocked off, is free parking. The only one entrance will be blocked off. So for instance, if you do turn on George Zeiger, you'll just have to go to, they won't allow you to turn in, you'll just go to the next entrance. I'm just trying to make your lives easier by telling you the easiest place to pull in, early in the day. And then you'll group together. We thank you in advance for your patience. You might stand and wait a couple minutes until Debbie's able to get you into your spot. But Debbie will get everybody into position. Again, we'll give you your Ask Me button, your cheat sheet. The other thing you're all going to get are little baggies of safety pins. Because some people are going to have their number, and for some reason their team captain didn't give them the pins, or they left the pins at home. We can really reduce traffic at registration if you give them pins. Otherwise, all those people would come to registration and clog that up. So everybody that goes out is gonna have a baggie of safety pins with them as well. That will probably be, correct me if I'm wrong, Debbie, one of your most asked questions. A lot of people ask for pins.
Yeah,
Correct.
and then another big question is my bib chipped?
Yes. So if you look down here a little bit further, let me just explain, and this pertains to registration people as well. When we talk about bibs, this is a bib or a race number. White, so everybody knows, let's say we have 4,000 people, it almost breaks down 25% each, give or take, of people that run the 5K and walk the 5K. The other half do the 1 mile, which never leaves the mall. It goes around the ring road, which is kind of the outermost loop of the parking lot. And I'd say 3/4 of that half walk the 1 mile, and then you've got, mostly like young kids who are excited to run their first race, run the mile. So we have three different color bibs. The white one is for 5K. I'll explain in a minute others, but anybody who wants to be timed, which means they want to be eligible for awards, and they're not on here right now because Hermes has them, but there will be 2 long magnets on the back of their white bib. If they don't have those magnets, their score will never register, so they can't win an award or can't know their time. So if somebody walks up and isn't sure, am I chip timed, this or that, if you see the magnets, they will get timed on the 5K. We do not time the 1 mile route. Okay, everybody understand that we only time the 5K. That being said, if somebody paid for a 5K and they want to do the 1 mile, it's no skin off our back. They're just not going to be timed, in the 5K. And they actually have to go over electronic mats on the 5K route, so their time wouldn't register. And the other thing that I say about that is the teal is technically a walking bib. It's a 1 mile walking bib. But again, that being said, if somebody comes in to walk up and says, I want to walk the 5K, I don't want to pay for the chip timing, you can walk the 5K route with this all day long if you want. You just won't be chip timed. So I know it sounds a little confusing because we say 5K bib 1 mile. 90% it breaks down that way because even a lot of people walking the 5K just pay for the 5K bib anyway. But just so you know, if you're getting that question and you're working registration and it's I don't wanna pay, I only wanna walk the 5K, that's okay. Between all of us in this room, this bib really means nothing in terms of, you don't need it for anything, doesn't chip time, but we like everybody to have them. First of all, it's fun, people like to have them, it make you realize how many people are registered, and there's a tiny level of accountability, so we don't just have hundreds of people walk up and not actually, pay to participate. This is a very, very important third color, cancer survivor. Some of these will have magnets, meaning they will be running or walking the 5K for time, and some folks wearing these will just do the 1 mile. So this is the only one that can be either. If somebody walks up to you with this bib and says, I'm a cancer survivor, you send them down to registration, we would be more than happy to swap out their bib. Okay, we already talked about, and by the way, bibs should be worn on the front, so when you're greeting, if you see somebody walk up with a bib on their back, just let them know, could you do us a favor and move that to the front? It works a lot better with the scoring equipment if it's on the front. The other thing is, do you see how these are perforated? This is old school. We used to do it way back when, where you'd rip them off as people would cross, and we'd put them on a big pin, and then we'd go manually through and see who's first, second, third. It's all done electronically with chips now, so this is actually meaningless. So if somebody says, what do I do with this? Do I rip it off? They don't ever have to rip it off, it just is part of the bib. But if that question should be asked, most people don't, but that if they do ask, it doesn't have the relevance it used to have prior to technology. Couple other quick things. The mall is open, but we do not want to encourage people to go in there. We want to be respectful to our amazing partner at Beechwood Place. The less traffic, the less cleaning they have to do. We do have porta potties in the race area. Some people will go in and use the bathrooms in the food court, and that is fine. But again, your first pointing of direction is restrooms are right over there, and point at the porta potties, because again, the less traffic, the better. We do know that some people that park on the Cedar Road side will cut through the mall, and that, again, it's totally fine. We just don't want to be sending hundreds of people in the mall. This is really important, and Debbie can talk about this with you when you get a sign. You're not married to your spot, follow the flow. And what that means is if you start standing right here, but you see that 30 feet to your left is really where all of a sudden all the people are going, take the liberty upon yourself to move yourself to be most effective within your general area. Here's another important one. Some people might walk up to you, because again, you're in that I know everything yellow shirt, and say, I have a check that's just a donation, what can I do with it? If you ask the person, make sure you're not looking to register, right? If they say no, and it's just a cash or check donation, you are welcome to take it, and then you bring it to the day of registration table when you leave your assignment. Because again, if you take that, it saves all those people from clogging up registration. But if they want to, you can't take their registration. Registration, you have to send them to registration. Something to note, participants with limited mobility can be dropped off by the barricades by Nordstrom, because you're going to see we block off a big chunk of the parking lot. So some of the regularly marked parking spots closest to the mall are not accessible. So if you should be asked that question, so let's say you're working the entrance at Cedar Road and somebody pulls up and says, I really need to drop my mom off, she can't walk that far. Direct them to pull around the Nordstrom side as far as they get until they get to barricades, which are pretty close to the event site. They could drop off there and park. Super duper important, and something that Liz and crew have added in the last few years that's been really fun, is if you're willing, so when you're done Ask Me-ing, I made it a verb. If you have a team, you are more than welcome to go run and walk with your team. If you do not have a team, though, and you are willing to stay a bit longer, we have a ton of cowbells. Who doesn't love a good cowbell? And we really started a practice of not only at the 5K, but we added a few years ago the 1 mile, and this is actually one of my favorite spots in the whole event, cheering people on at the finish line. And we do have volunteers doing it. We kind of ring the, so the 5K finishes, it's kind of tough for runners, but it works very well for the crowd and the ambiance. They come down George Zeiger and they turn into the mall and almost do a U-turn. So we line volunteers there with cowbells, but we have to really think about how important this 1 mile is to this particular organization. Whether it's just the kid who ran his first race or a participant whose goal was to build up to be able to walk a mile. It's a pretty special area, so if you are willing to stay, and right when you're done your Ask Me shift, you go back to Liz at Volunteer Check-In, you get a cowbell and you go to one of the finish lines, we really appreciate it. The 1 mile, it's really cute to see the faces on both the kids and the adults at the 1 mile when all of a sudden they have 20 people cheering them on at the finish line. That was one of our best additions, I think. Okay, on the back is a bunch of general information about where things are. If you look at the bottom, barring heavy winds, we try to mark each area of the event with balloons. This is kind of your cheat sheet, so if somebody says, where's first aid, see the red balloons. Where are the restrooms? They can kind of see the restrooms too, but we also have balloons there. Now, it's a little different this year because registration's downstairs, it's a little less visible for those, so anything having to do with pre-registration or day of, you're sending them downstairs. And then when they get down there, we have ways to split them up. The other really important area to note is the team meeting area, which will be marked by blue balloons, which is a vast area sort of at the back of the site. This is another thing we've added in over the years. It's funny, 7, 8 years ago, we'd have people come up to us, where's my team captain? And we're like, I wish I knew, I'm so sorry, right? Because we do send out a lot of correspondences to the team captain, but not everybody reads all their emails, and they show up and they want to be with their team. But we have tried our best to help this process. We mark off parking spots. We are, this year, make signs on a stick. We started this last year with the sticks we used to chuck on the ground. With all the team names, and every team has a parking spot. And so we encourage team captains to be there early in their parking spot with their stuff, if they haven't already handed it out, holding up their sign. And then, Marilyn shows up and says, where do I meet my team? What's your team? Head over there. Oh, they're in alphabetical order. You can see Marilyn's, runners right over there. It's really worked out well. And if you look across, it's actually kind of cool because you really see everybody meeting in their teams together. So that's a really important area and question that Ask Me volunteers will get asked a good amount. Sorry, go ahead.
I'm an Ask Me volunteer, but I also started 2 teams.
Awesome.
So
So
can I assign someone?
I was just gonna say the same thing. What I'd recommend you do is during packet pickup, you'll come pick up your team stuff. If you can't get it to people in advance, if you could designate a proxy captain for each team that's willing to get there early with your team stuff, go find the parking spot and their sign, and then still send the email to your teams to meet everybody there.
Got it.
Thank you. Great question.
And also, there are volunteers, are they gonna have orange shirts on again?
And
To
it's-
help you find your team?
do they usually wear yellow? The team meeting
Or
vote?
orange to
I
stand
think
out.
Oh,
last year they
perfect.
were
But there
Orange
will,
is great.
but yes, there will be volunteers who will be with clipboards who can help people find their
Yeah.
teams and their captains.
Because it is alphabetical, but we have, we have those rebels every year that even though we say, try not to start your team name with the word team, they do.
A couple years ago, I had an instance where somebody was sick on the route.
Mm-hmm.
So the Ask Me volunteers should know how to
Mhm.
get in touch with
Absolutely.
or.
Great question. So we do have, within the event site, which is where in the parking lot itself, university hospitals will have first aid staff. On the course, the City of Beechwood Police, or EMS, have their roaming golf cart. You can find event manager who has a radio, or you also, if it's serious enough, you can call 911 directly, and Beechwood Police is close enough, they just need to know where to go. If it's not that timely and urgent, find one of our captains who are all in the event space on radio, and we can manage it that way. But they're no farther than 30 seconds away, they just might not be exactly where you are.
Back to the teams for a minute.
Uh-huh.
What about the people who show up who are not on the team?
So
What
then,
send them?
just to the general event space. If they haven't picked up their stuff, they go down to registration. If they have, their whole hour before, there's music. We have an area called Celebration Village with about 8 or 9 kids' activities. And it just becomes a big hangout area. And everybody just hangs out. It's actually super fun. And then our annual, hopefully everybody knows we do this every year on National Cancer Survivors Day, which is the first Sunday in June. So at approximately 8:45, we have a ceremony on the stage where we encourage everybody to come close to the stage and Chris runs a great program recognizing survivors and survivorship and the other elements of the mission of the Gathering Place. So here's what I'm gonna tell you. Registration goes from 7:30 to 8:45, but 8:15 to 8:45, 80% of the people arrive. As my powerhouse, as I call them, like to tease me, I always call that the time of organized chaos. This is a good transition into registration. If it's not organized chaos, that means we didn't do our job and we don't have enough people. Organized chaos means success. But what that means is everybody who's walking in comes in the same 30-minute window. So it does get crazy in registration for those 30 minutes, but we have such great volunteers, we're able to get it done. And we've never had a situation where we haven't gotten everybody registered before the race starts. We get it done. And as I mentioned, like I talked about good problems to have, part of registration, there's a shirt distribution table. You know, I'm the first one to sit here and say today, I hope we run out of shirts before racing, because what do you think that means? Our numbers are amazing, right? And I'd be the first one to stand there with a smile and say, thank you so much for walking up this morning. This is the most exciting news ever. We are out of shirts because we're so overwhelmed because 4,500 people are supporting the Gathering Place. And I have found in 98% of cases, if you explain it like that with a smile, people are like, that's amazing, I'm thrilled. Yes, are you gonna have the 2% who are like, well, I want a shirt? Well, here's what I wanna tell you. You are volunteers, and you are amazing for being there. If you have any situation that you feel uncomfortable, or that is a situation where the person just won't take the smile answer, either grab one of the staff captains, and you'll always have a staff captain in your area. And also at shirts, for example, we're gonna have a notepad there, because Joe comes up and he adamantly wants to switch his medium out for a large, but we don't have a large. And you say, you know what, let me take your name and number, and a member of the Gathering Place will call you next week, because sometimes afterwards, we have some shirts that people don't pick up, and we're happy to switch Joe's shirt out, but we just might not be able to do it at that moment. But I really don't want to scare anybody away. I'm not exaggerating when I tell you this is a really small percentage of people. Most people are so happy to be here, and if you tell them why they're not getting the size they want or why they're not getting a shirt at all, they're thrilled, because that really means success for the organization and the event. Pipe down over there, Pat Singer. Pipe down over there.
You're at the question, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Do all participants wear a race shirt?
So, great question. Yeah, no.
Meredith, repeat that question.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Thanks.
I forgot about my repeating question. Do all participants wear a race shirt? I'd say probably close to 50% do. Some people like to run in their own clothes. Some teams do shirts. So, for instance, one of our great partners, Advanced Partners, they have a huge team every year and raise just insanely generous amount for the Gathering Place. They wear Team Advanced shirts. So teams are welcome to wear their own shirts. But it is cool, and if you look at the pictures on the website, when you look across, the race shirt is the dominant attire, but not everybody.
Okay, so my Curves seniors can wear a Curves t-shirt.
Absolutely. And we were just talking about this with we have this awesome new teen council this year, which we're really excited about. And we met with this group of teens last night, and one of their jobs is to generate teams. And one girl said, I'm gonna try to get my volleyball team. We're like, wear your volleyball jerseys if you want. Like that, you promote who you are together also. So you can wear anything you want.
I just refresh my memory because I don't remember. The go-to staff, if there are any issues, are you going to be wearing something that's identifiable that we can see you?
We will be wearing the yellow shirts as well, that you guys are wearing, but we will have a radio in hand, and we will be very present in the general event space.
And Steve, Gathering Place staff who is remembering to do this, we're all supposed to be wearing our name tags. So if you look for yellow
Yeah,
shirt and
That's a
a
great
name
point.
tag.
I'm the only one that's actually not a Gathering Place staff member, but I will be present, I promise.
Does the race start at the same time for all the teams?
It does. So what happens is this 7:30 to 8:45 period of time, the question was, does the race start the same time for everybody? So to quickly go through the timeline, for those on video as well, 7:30 to 8:45 is registration. Again, if somebody's still in line at 8:46, we're gonna get them done, and we're gonna get them ready in time. 8:45 is our ceremony. Then we split the crowd. This is my favorite visual of the day. Again, it feels like organized chaos, but it's actually pretty cool if you watch it from like the stage. The 1 mile participants, and if I'm standing on the stage, this will make sense to you there. They go to the right, and they immediately start around the ring road. We actually don't hold them at the 1 mile because they're not being timed, because if they start to clear the area, it actually clears the area better. The 5K folks head down towards George Steiger Drive, so they're kind of splitting like this. We have stilt walkers really high above the crowd holding up signs that say 1 mile over here, 5K over here, and we just stand at the stage directing people. Some of you will help with that splitting of the crowd. If you're a greeter, ask me volunteer in that area, I'm gonna come up to you, or Liz is coming up to you and say, hey, when the ceremony's over, just stand here saying 5K this way, 5K this way. So yes, the 1 mile probably starts a few minutes earlier, just because again, we just start them to clear the area. Then what happens is, as the 5K is lined up and ready on George Iger between myself, the police, and Hermes Sports and Events, who manages the chip timing in the race, right about 9 o'clock, 9:01 maybe, but don't tell Beechwood Police, we will say ready, set, go, and they start. So,
The, oftentimes for registration, we would have people come up and say, I don't like my medium size, I
Mhm.
need a large. So do we send them over to the table and see if they can switch it out?
yes.
Okay.
So, and here's the thing, we'll know how to answer this question a lot better next Friday. Actually, Courtney and I just ran the first data. We are, as of this moment, if you have registered, or anybody registers, they will get the shirt size they have requested. We are not close to running out of a particular size. But what's gonna happen is, we track that every day from here on out. There will hit a point, whether it's next Tuesday, next Wednesday, I don't know what day it is, we're gonna run out of probably adult smalls first, okay? We mark in the system when that happens, we take it off the website, and then those of you who are involved in packing next week, we actually do have a really good system on how to track that. So for instance, we'll pack the box, but let's say that Judy and Joanne registered late and they're not gonna get the size they want. Their shirts will be rubber banded on the top, and there's a letter that explains why they're not getting the shirt size they want. So that's a little bit of background information to your question, but Joni's question specifically was, will we swap sizes out on race day? The reason I say we'll know better next Friday or Saturday is, let's say we go into race day with 200 large t-shirts that are not assigned to anybody, then absolutely, if somebody wants to swap out, anything left, this is the number one most important thing I'm going to say. We must know what individual has every single white bib or every single purple chipped bib. So I'm going to repeat that one more time. We need to know who has every single white bib and purple chipped bib. We do not need to track teal bibs. This is for fun. These are for scoring. I have a really good feeling this is going to be our first year where we're not going to be missing any numbers, thanks to this rock star crew. What that means with a walk-up, if you're working the 5K table, you are going to check their form over. You are going to give them this. You are going to take the thick red Sharpie, and in the top corner of the form, really boldly, it says bib number with a line. And you are going to write what bib number you gave them before you ever hand the bib over to them and let them out of your sight. You're going to double check as you're handing it that you wrote the number. And I'm not trying to sound like, it goes fast, so we all are human beings. We go really fast and then we're like, oh darn it, we forgot to write that number. So if I could just reiterate over and over that that is the most important part of the process. Because then what happens is, Judy and Sue have runners that will continuously be running those forms over to Hermes, who is furiously entering into the computer that Marilyn is XYZ age, bib number 3400. They have to enter all of that in order for Marilyn's score to be attributed to Marilyn. Inevitably, we end up with a small handful of bibs across the finish line that we do not have a name attributed to. So that is the most important area to just triple check your work. And we have, Judy, there's people that'll be there to help you, that have done it before, that will continuously be reminding you. We thank you in advance for not getting offended if we remind you too much, but we figure better to over-remind than to have missing numbers. Because what happens is that I end up, Courtney Fisher and I are going to be walking around the crowd like, we're looking for 3401. Who's 3401? And I'm not joking that this is actually what happens. And then I feel like creepy because I'm walking around staring at everybody's stomach. And then the award ceremony is delayed because we can't find the folks. So that is the number one most important factor in registration. Of course, so is swiping the credit card, getting the money, but the number one most important thing for the day to run smoothly is making sure that every 5K bib has a number corresponding on the registration form. Those who are sent to 1 Mile, that's much simpler. They check over the form, they clip the payment, or they run the credit card, and they hand them the teal bib, and at either of those tables that they have, then you send them right next door, meaning 10 feet over, to the t-shirt table where they get the t-shirts. The one thing that might happen at those tables is, you know, Susie's gonna come up with this and say, oh, you know what, I really wanna do the 5K. No problem. We will switch out her bib, but you must grab a form and write the number if you're giving her a 5K bib. We're not worried about saying, oh, you owe us $5. If they offer, you say, you know, feel free to get online and make a donation. At that point, speed of service is more important, and tracking their 5K bib is more important, and making them happy is more important. If somebody comes up with this and says, I only want to walk, then say, oh, no worries, you can walk with that. You don't have to replace them out. I do want to stress one more time really quick the importance of the purple bibs. And we try to get it right, we go by the data, but sometimes people click the wrong box and all of this. So if somebody comes up and is a survivor and was given the wrong bib, please just profusely apologize. We want to recognize survivors sufficiently. We do our best, but data is data. Occasionally there are data errors in that, but we're happy to swap out. But again, if you swap out a 5K survivor, you must write down that bib number. So you're gonna have all the supplies you need on your front table, the bibs and all that. The one thing I do wanna point out, this is only gonna be relevant to a couple volunteers. We're gonna have 2 people behind the tables that we call chip volunteers, because every time a magnet's put on, we pay for it. So we wanna do our best to have as few left over after the race with magnets, because that's kind of wasted. Now, we know we're not gonna get it down exact, because it's fast and furious, but, so we're not gonna start you out with 300 chipped bibs, because what if only 150 people walk up? So we have 2 people behind you that are continuously chipping bibs and giving them to you as you need it. So if you're working really hard at your transactions and you're out, you turn to either Judy or the chip people, whoever's behind you, you know, I need more 5K bibs, and we'll get them to you, you know, as quickly as possible. But again, every dollar counts towards our free services here, so we try not to have, you know, 100 chip bibs left over, because that's just money that we could have saved. Okay, shirt, oh yes.
When you not swap out the bid for survivor bid, don't you want to capture the old bid number so Hermes looks that up and just change the number?
Yes, so if it's a 5K change, yes, you are, and do you do that on a form? How do you do that right at the table? You just take a new form when you swap out? So let's say somebody comes up with a chipped white and you're giving them a chipped purple.
Yes.
So that'll be key on the form is for the, and that's a small percentage, but I'm glad you asked it. You can just write old number, new number, so we do know to do that. Now, we will not put the old number, most likely because it's moving so fast, we won't put the old number back into circulation, so worst case, it's just not, yeah. Okay, so let's transition to shirts. Sounds like an easy job, for the most part it is. But again, until next Friday, we won't know how easy or complicated that job will be. It will be based on what we have left. Hopefully, we're out of some sizes, and hopefully we barely have any shirts left at the table. For the sake of you working the table, I hope we have enough that it's an enjoyable experience, which we will, we should. We, by the way, just so you all know in this room, we order more than we say. So we guarantee 4,000 people shirts. We do order more than that. We are able to satisfy a lot of people. But again, that table is, for the most part, they come over, they come from day of, they show you their bib, you give them whatever size they want, easy transaction. You don't have the size, you say, oh, we're so happy with the numbers, unfortunately we're out of adult larges, I can offer you this, this, or this. For the 2% of transactions that don't go well, grab a staff member or write it on the pad of paper, and we have never not been able to make somebody happy the week after. People just sometimes need to understand that in that exact moment, we need to move on. The third area is pre-registration, which Maureen is not here today. So anybody that pre-registered, we do encourage everybody that pre-registered to come pick up Thursday, Friday, or Saturday at either Gathering Place East or Gathering Place West. We purposely make the logistics a lot harder on us, but in a very joyful way by having both sites available, because we want people to walk in the doors of either Gathering Place location that they want to be a part of or are most convenient to them. There are people who don't make it though, and come pick it up race morning. Those are the people that come to the pre-registration table. That is the number one table where we just go with the customer is always right philosophy. There are going to be people that swear on their life they registered and we don't have them registered, and maybe they just human error on the computer or whatever. 9 times out of 10, we just send them over, grab them a shirt, and take care of them. And that's where the 3 tables work together a little bit behind the scenes. But we're not in the business of making somebody angry over a t-shirt, so that's really the only thing that would happen there. Most of that table, it's a pretty simple transaction. I didn't pick up my shirt, here it is. Again, we pulled those shirts aside, so come Tuesday, each day next week, anybody who's pre-registered, their shirt will be there waiting, so they don't have to worry about the middle table.
Unless our
Also,
captain
teams.
has picked it up
So,
and taken it
Also,
off.
teams.
teams that have.
Okay, so let's talk through this, because this does become a quirky thing, and you gotta remember, we have over 200 teams. We communicate like crazy with them, but we can't control everybody reading their emails and everybody doing things. The ideal process is a team captain comes here Thursday, Friday, or Saturday, gets their stuff, either gives it to people ahead of time, or shows up in their parking spot with their sign. 80% probably do work that way, and it's wonderful. The other 20% can work in one of 2 ways. We do try to communicate with the ones who haven't picked up. And a lot of them do communicate with me. I'm the one, for those of you team captains, I'm the one you're getting all the emails from. They sometimes might show up early and go to their spot with their whole box, which again, we prefer, because we don't want all their individual team members coming up to pre-registration for their shirts. But there's going to be some of that. So we'll communicate the best we can and hope that 80 to 90% of the people get their stuff in the team meeting area. But we do know that some will come to pre-registration, and we will just communicate with them best we can. The other scenario is XYZ company picks up their team box Friday at noon, and then 5 more people register. Those people will be at the pre-registration table. And that's in a letter to team captains. We tell them that. Again, that doesn't always trickle down to all 4,000 people. So there's gonna be a little bit of troubleshooting needing there. But again, before that race kicks off, everybody has what they need to participate. Anything I missed on that?
No, we will have computers there, so we can always check
Yes.
to see if in fact they have registered. But it's very important, so don't
Yeah.
leave yet.
Do you want to repeat that, Meredith?
Go.
Yes, we will have computers at pre-registration, so we can look people up, and again, we can do our best. By the way, there's some people that don't even know what team they're on, so those are, like, somebody will come up and be like,
Yeah.
I don't know the name of my team, and that's where what Pat is saying comes into handy. Oh, well, who asked you to sign up? Oh, Liz Krantz, great, I'll look her up, well, she's Shaker Souls, why don't you go see if she
We
has your
also
stuff?
have a list of all the teams by team name or by
Right.
and by captain name.
Yes.
We find them, or we find where they belong.
So I do want, yes, I want to open it up for the last 5 minutes of questions, but I see people do have to start to leave. Debbie's in the hallway. If you're an Ask Me volunteer, if you could take 30 more seconds and see Debbie on your way out, but I'm also happy to answer any other questions before the Ask Me volunteers go. Any questions? Hopefully I've covered it all, and again, I thank you all for your time. This really does help.